Hello, welcome to Web of Stories. My name is Melinda and I am here with a tag today. I am here with the cozy coffee mug tag and I have a prop, one of my favorite mugs. I don't have that many mugs, no matter what my husband tells you. I don't have that many mugs, but they're all like personal expression mugs. And I love this one because I love the Golden Girls. And I'm getting to Golden Girls age because they were actually a lot younger than we think we were. But it's empty because it's in the afternoon. If I were to drink coffee now, I'd be awake all night. But this tag was created by Jen at Literary Love, and each prompt is based on one of her favorite mugs. I was tagged by Pat at Book Chat with Pat. And so this prompt has this tag has 7 prompts, and then I will tag some people. I have my jar ready to go here. The first tag mug we're going to deal with is one that says Hex the Patriarchy and share your favorite women authors. So when I was tagged, I commented to Pat, I said, we're going to have the same answers for the first question. And we do, for at least there's a lot of overlap. I can't remember my first two authors I know were, these are not in the right order for me. Hold on a sec. I have my pile ready. The first 2 authors I know were in Pat's favorites. And I can't remember if they were all the ones she mentioned, but at least 2 of them are. And then I have another one that wasn't on her list, but we're going to start with the Louises. So first we have Louise Penny. And she, of course, is the author of the Garmash series, Armand Gamache. The first book is Still Life. The 19th book of this is coming out in October, so next month. I love this series. I want to go live in Three Pines. And I know it has a disproportionate amount of murder in that little town, but I don't care because they have dinner parties and a great bookstore. But I want to go live there. I love the story. And yes, I know Three Pines is based on real towns in the eastern townships in Canada, and I would like to go there too. But these are just, even though they're murders, and she can get really dark. Like not the one that's coming out, but the one that came out, the last one that came out, which is World of Curiosities, which is my favorite. But that one's really dark, but it still feels really comforting to me. The next Louise is, of course, Louise Erdrich. If you don't know Louise Erdrich, she is probably the preeminent current Indigenous author in the United States. She has won the Pulitzer. She's won the National Book Award. She's a big deal, and I love her books. And this is my favorite of her books. It's kind of a hit or miss book with some people, but I love it. This is the book that started my genre. I created the genre a time capsule book, which is a book that's written about its current time, but it becomes a time capsule of that book. So it's not historical because it has to be written in the current time. And this one really is. It's set between November 1st, 2019 and November 1st, 2020. Or maybe November 2nd, 2020. I don't know, because, that was a big day. And it was written during that time too. So very specific time, written at that time. This is a time capsule book. And it's my favorite of hers. And it's going to come back in a second. But I will also say, if you haven't read this and you're an audiobook person, the audiobook of this is excellent. I read this 3 times in 1 year, and one of the times was audio. And Louise Erdrich narrates it herself, which normally I'd be a little iffy about. I'm a little iffy about authors narrating their own works. I'm not against it, but it is just a lot harder. Fiction authors. But she does an excellent job with it. So Louise Erdrich. And the other one I have, which was not on Pat's list, is Alice Hoffman. And this is my favorite of her books, Magic Lessons. So she's written quite a bit. She's probably most famous for Practical Magic. She wrote that over 25 years ago. About 20 years after writing Practical Magic, she turned it into a series. So she came out with a prequel about 20 years after that. And that's called Magic Lesson. No, that one's called Rules of Magic. And then she came out to a prequel of that one, which is really the prequel of the whole series, because this is set back in mostly in colonial America. And the main character in this is Maria Owens. I have heard it actually pronounced both ways, though historically it would have been pronounced Mariah. And she is the first of the Owens women to come to the United States. And so this is my favorite because it's real historical. I mean, we get into nitty gritty historical. And then after this, she wrote a book called The Book of Magic, which wraps up the whole series, which I also enjoyed. But I love Alice Hoffman. She's a very versatile writer. She does not all of her books, but a lot of her books have like a magical realism element, which I like. So Alice Hoffman. Now, a couple weeks ago, I started the Let Me Introduce You tag. And I did it on William Kent Kruger. And I am a William Kent Kruger completist, at least as far as I can be a completist. And the reason, and I said this in that video, that I didn't do that for either of these authors was because they still have I still have quite a ways to go in their backlist. And I'm not saying I have to be a completist to feel like I can do that tag, but I need to read more of their backlist before I feel like I can do that tag for either one of them. But I will bring that tag back when I'm ready for either of these authors. Okay, question 2. Never underestimate a woman who reads Stephen King. Share your favorite fictional women characters. So I have 2, and one comes from the sentence, and that's Tuki. So Tuki is an Indigenous woman. She had been in prison. She'd been in prison for it's terrible but also ridiculous crime, and she really was not the person. I mean, she committed the crime not knowing. It's a kind of crazy story, but she's out of prison and she works at Birchbark Bookstore, which is actually Louise Erdrich's bookstore. In fact, Louise Erdrich herself is in this book as sort of kind of a off to the side character. Tuki has such a wonderful voice and she's such a relatable character. I love her so, so, so much. And that's probably why this is my favorite Louise Erdrich book. And the other one is for a mystery series. It's Ruth Galloway, and this is the Ruth Galloway Mysteries by Ellie Griffiths. So Ruth Galloway lives in Norfolk, England. So that's kind of on the east. And she is a forensic archaeologist professor. So she is, not only is she a professor, but she's also who the police call when they find bones to figure out if it's a recent murder or if it's someone who was been there for thousands of years. And I love Ruth Galloway because she is the most normal person. She is super smart. She's very sensible, but she has her lapses and sensibilities sometimes. She doesn't think she's gorgeous. I think she's probably, in my mind, I think she's actually quite lovely, but she's not like model looking. She's middle-aged. The series spans about 12 years, so she's like young middle-aged to maybe more middle-aged by the end of it. And she could be anybody, and she's so real, and I love her so much. That series is complete for now, according to Ellie Griffiths. So if you're someone who doesn't like to read a series because you don't want to get stuck and not know what happens next and have to wait for a book, don't have to worry about that with this one. You can read the whole series. There is a short story collection Ellie Griffiths is putting out that will have some Ruth Galloway stories in it, but I think they're very kind of on the side, so they don't move the overall plot along in any way. But that's coming out, I think, next month or something like that. Whatever. Okay, number 3, Edgar Allan Poe. Share your favorite Gothic book or story. I have 2. I have a classic and I have something modern. So the classic, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I love this book. I love Jane Eyre. I do not like Rochester. Don't like Rochester. And because of that, I do not consider this a romance. I consider it a book about a woman coming into her own, who ends up with a kind of guy. But, one thing that makes a Gothic story Gothic is a house or some structure that's Gothic. And this one has it. Thornfield is Mr. Rochester's home. So I first read this in college and we discussed it, and we spent a lot of time talking about how Thornfield has a lot of phallic symbolism. And then the house that is at the end. And if you haven't read it, I'm not going to ruin it. I can't remember the name of the house, but that's very womb-like. It's bizarre how much time we spent on that discussion. But I love Jane Eyre. I love Jane Eyre. I've not actually read this particular copy. This is a copy I got because it looks nice and it can go on my shelf. The next time I reread it, I have digital copy, but this just looks so nice that I had to have it, and I can't find my copy from college, so Jane Eyre. The more modern selection is actually very reminiscent of Jane Eyre. In fact, this is a very Brontean novel, and that is The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. I've read this book like maybe 7 times. All but my 2 current book clubs have done this book. Like, it is a book club book. So this is very Brontean. It feels like the Brontes. It has the house. It's very dark and twisty. It's about a young woman. She's a bookseller, rare bookseller. And she gets contacted by this author, this sort of famous author who wants this woman to write her life story. And this woman is the author is famous for this book, a collection of stories, and it was called The 13 Tales, and there were only 12. And so it's what is the 13th tale? Very twisty, very dark. Oh, I love it so much. It appeals to my dark and twisty side. Okay, number 5. Camp Crystal Lake. Share a book that makes you feel nostalgic. And I really had to think about this, and I don't have a physical copy of this book, which makes me mad because like 3 people have told me they were going to give me their copy because I have a digital copy of it. No, I have an audio copy of it, and I wanted it, and then none of them have given me their copies yet. Just saying. I need to get a physical copy of this. And that is We Ride Upon Sticks by Quanberry. So this is set in Danvers, Massachusetts, which is where the Salem witch trials happened. They did not happen in Salem, Massachusetts. They happened in Danvers, Massachusetts, which at the time was Salem Village. But this is set in like the late 80s, I think 1989. And it's a field hockey team, and they're terrible. They're terrible. They want to have a winning season. So they end up selling, they're selling their soul to the devil, which is actually, his book is actually a spiral notebook with Emilio Estevez's picture on it. And so they call him Emilio. And it's the story of each of these players and what's going on in their life. And it has a lot of parallels with the history of the Salem witch trials, and not in a witchy way, but in the way that I really like, which is historical and looking at context and all that. And this book has so much 80s nostalgia. Love it. So these characters are 2 years older than I am. So it's still my high school experience they're talking about. I love this book. Love this book so much. And I need to get a physical copy of it. And you know who you are. You probably don't watch us. In fact, I know one of you doesn't. But you said you'd give me your copy and you haven't yet. Okay, that's my nostalgia book. Okay, question number 6. I skipped a question. So just so you know, this is the second time I've done this video, and each time I skip questions. So that was number 5. We skipped number 3, which is share your favorite. No, we skipped number 4, which is Swifteas. Name your auto by authors. So, auto by authors, I've already covered Louise Penny, Louise Erdrich, Alice Hoffman, and we also have, no surprise to anybody, William Kent Kruger. I've talked a lot about William Kent Kruger. You know my love for this man, so I'm not going to say anything more about William Kent Kruger. But I have a couple other ones I'm going to share. And these are both British authors. In fact, I've had to get these books from Blackwell's. The first one is, they are released in the US, but I need them, they're auto buy, so I need to get them as soon as I can. They're released earlier in the UK, so that's why I get them from the UK. But Robert Thorogood, The Marlowe Murder Club, this series. A lot of people have heard of the Thursday Night Murder Club, which is great, but they think this is kind of like a knockoff, and that's not fair. It's not. The names are kind of similar, so I can see it based on that. This is a English village mystery. I would not say it's cozy. It has a little bit more of a bite. It makes it not cozy. But there's 3 women in the Marlowe Murder Club, and one of them is a woman of the age of the members of the Thursday Murder Club. Just one of them, though. And the other 2, one's a middle-aged dog walker, and the other one is the wife of the village vicar. And they're women who are kind of invisible to society. So that kind of allows them to sort of maybe be a little detective-y, snoopy, But I really liked this. I enjoy this. There is 2 other books so far in the series. I have them both. I have to read the 3rd one still, but I have read. I do love this one. In fact, I should probably move the other one down to my TBR shelf. And the other one is, now, her most recent book, was released in the US at the same time, but it was cheaper for me to get it from Blackwell's, and I'm still waiting for my copy. But this is my favorite of her books so far that I've read, and that is Janice Hallett. So she writes mysteries, and they are puzzle mysteries, and the puzzles are really, really intricate. She also writes what you call multimedia. So the narrative is text messages and emails and voicemails between people. It's not just like straight reading paragraphs. It's multimedia, which makes these go really quickly. Now, the really interesting thing about Janice Hallett, if you know that the terms plotter and pantser in sort of the writing community, the plotter is someone who will plot out, outline everything with their book so that they have it all ready to go, and then they will start writing the book. And a pantser is someone who just writes the book. You would think she's a plotter because these are so intricate. They are so intricate, and the clues are so well embedded, but she's not. She's a pantser. She's a complete pantser, and that blows my mind. So we're going to add Robert Thorogood and Janice Hallett to my auto-buy authors. Okay, let's get back. We've done the book that makes you feel nostalgic, and now we're on holiday themed. This is number 6, Happy Halloween, and I have 2. The first one is a slim little short story collection. It's called A Christmas Memory by Truman Capote. So this has 3 stories in it. The first 2 are Christmas stories. And because whoever put short story collections don't quite understand the order of holidays, the Thanksgiving story is after that. But there's a Thanksgiving story and 2 Christmas stories, and they are absolutely delightful. So if you know anything about Truman Capote, about his life, as a young boy, he was sent to live with his mother's family in a little town in Alabama. And these are stories inspired from his childhood, so from that time. When he was living there, he made a friend who we know as Harper Lee. And he's actually the inspiration for the neighbor kid in To Kill a Mockingbird. But To Kill a Mockingbird was based on Harper Lee's hometown. This is set in the time when Truman Capote was in the same town, so these have a real feeling of like To Kill a Mockingbird. They don't say the same things, that To Kill a Mockingbird does, but just sort of that feel is very similar, and they're just delightful to read. So highly recommend these. I take this out. I will be rereading the Thanksgiving one on Thanksgiving night, and then I'll read the other 2 sometimes between then and Christmas, because I will be reading these every year. I just love them so much. And the next one I really like is because it works for 2 holidays. And I've talked about this one before. This is The Gingerbread Men by Joanna Corrence. This is a horror novel, which makes it perfect for spooky season. Perfect. But it's a horror novel set at the Christmas time, so you can read it at Christmas time too. And if you don't read horror, this is a perfect book to start with because it's not gory. I mean, there's not a lot of blood and violence and all that kind of stuff. It's not that kind of horror. It's also very creepy, but it's not very scary. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be really creepy. It feels like a grown-up fairy tale is what it feels like. And it is the kind of book where you don't really know what it's about until the very last page. And then you're like, oh, wow. Loved this book. I have been recommending it kind of very frequently since I read it, but I do recommend this one. It is released in the US. It might not be super easy to find if you're going to a bookstore to look for it, but you should very easily be able to get it at like bookshop.org or have your bookstore order it. Okay, number 7. This mug contains magic, and this is share a book you enjoy that is outside of your comfort zone or typical genre. So I'm going to share one that I just finished last night. It's one that I did it for my Howl's Bingo card. It was Read a Friend's Favorite Book. And this is Bookish Best Friend. I actually asked a lot of people what's your favorite book? Because I was hoping one of them would give me a short book I hadn't read. And no, they all gave me long books. And I ended up doing this one because I owned it. I owned the digital, but then I ended up getting the audio from the library to listen to, which actually was excellent. And this is Light from Uncommon Stars by Rika Aoki. Now, I have heard Caitlin at Bandy's Books and Hannah at Savage Reads both talk about this one as well. And this is sci-fi, but maybe fantasy. There's like aliens, and they have a space thing that's a donut shop. But there's also a violin teacher who sold her soul to the devil and needs to have another soul to give to the devil. And there's a lot about that. And there's the main character is this transgender girl who's never really been taught violin, but is a violin virtuoso. It's not a cozy book. Like, I know cozy is sort of like cozy sci-fi or cozy fantasy. There's that new kind of genre, but I felt cozy reading it, even though I wouldn't call it a cozy book like that. Do recommend the audio. The audio really worked well for me. I actually think because sci-fi is not my preferred genre, and I do sometimes, when something's like really, really sci-fi, I can sometimes get kind of lost in it. And I did a little bit in there. That's a me issue, not a book issue. But because it was audio, I was able to just kind of go with it and enjoy the story. So definitely Light from Uncommon Stars by Rika Aoki. So those are the 6 questions. And now it's time to tag some friends. Now I have Pat's tag up here, and she tagged me a couple weeks ago. So I'm going to pull my 3 out of here, and I have the list of who she tagged. I'll put them back if she's already tagged them, but if you've been tagged by someone else since then, sorry. I'm doing the best I can. First one is, oh, you weren't tagged on this. So Angelia at Read and Reread. You are my first taggy person. And then we have, Jim at Books, Reading, and Stuff. Okay. Let's see what my third one is. I can't believe that I haven't pulled one out that she tagged, because she tagged quite a few. Oh wow, 3 for 3. Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading. You are consider yourselves tagged, which of course is an invitation, not a requirement or request, but I'm inviting you to do this tag. I would love to see your answers. And if I didn't pull your name from here and you want to do this, please do tag me so I'm sure to see your videos. I usually go through and go through the mentions, and usually if I mention in a video, I pull it up quickly to watch it in a reasonable amount of time. So be sure to tag me so I see your video. Anyway, thank you very much. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye-bye.